UNH is in a major spot as sellers continue to step in. Buyers had that control with that ascending support that we see here in that ascending nature, but sellers pushed us under that and now under this 295. So the question is, are we headed to the complete bottom of this consolidation formation or even lower, testing that low of 247.13? Or can the buyers step in here before it's too late, pushing price back up, continuing our rise to that $339 level? Now, beginning this analysis on the weekly time frame, I want to point out we're in a very important spot here as that 255.63 level aided this big movement up, this mountain-like effect, all the way to that $545 level. We see that bounce. We get tight above that 255 and we consolidate. And you can see in the past, right, we rejected off that 255. Couple weeks of rejection, come back down, try to stay above it for some weeks. We flush that and we get back up. So we can see that it was a tough resistance to get over and overall just a tough spot to stay over. And as we get over that, that really aids us to that mountain-like effect as we chop around and we really just kind of ascend all the way up to around that $545 level. And we find that longer-term consolidation range, that wide consolidation between 432 and 545. So over a $100 consolidation range, and we chop in there for some time, ultimately come back out, reaching that 621 all-time high. And from there, guys, we get under that. We try to reclaim that level of 545 as that was the top of this consolidation zone here. We cannot do that. We flush back down, but we do end up getting above it for a little bit of time as price tries to reach back to those all-time highs, and we see that drastic sell-off. And right around that range where, price really took off, found that momentum, found that energy, and took off. So very important zone here. And as we saw, we wicked around that ascending support, got back up, ascend for some time, but then you see the last 3 weekly candles, guys, the sellers have gained that control. We saw buyers really try to push it up after being in ascending profile. We see that strong selling pressure. For those that don't know, a big top wick like that, guys, means a lot of selling pressure, indicating that the buyers tried pushing it up, but the sellers did react and pushed us back down. Followed that up by 2 red candles, the last candle being a very large red bar. This scared out a lot of long-term position holders as we fell above that 600 all the way down to that floor of 247, which is a very strong movement, guys. We're talking about almost 60% of the stock itself just completely plummeting. So we're going to be taking it to the daily to get a closer eye perspective and see what's really going on here and what we can expect. All right, guys, now on the daily, we see that very drastic sell-off, right? We see that huge gap down, continued movement down, and another gap down as we covered in the past videos, guys. Followed up by a very large red bar, another gap down, and we find that floor of that 247, right? We see that strong buying pressure after sellers really try to rip it down, and then we see that continued move up. Trying to get to the top of that range, we cannot, and we start to form a pennant-like structure. So very volatile on that whole sell-off, volatile in this pennant, but then we find that price tightens up a bit. We find this resistance, this support, and we squeeze out to that $317 level. Then we get into another descending type of range, but it's a lot tighter. We find that ascending support once again, met up with that resistance, and we squeeze out again and further. So we get above that 317 quite nicely, very nice green wide bar, indicating that we would very likely be testing that 339. But guys, sellers react as they have to react sooner than later, or the buyers would be testing that 339. So they really give us quite a mirroring candle, right? Very similar candle on that movement down, and we find that ascending support once again. But instead of bouncing and trying to hold, get really, really tight between that 317 and that ascending support, we flush, and we see the buyers try to step in after we get pushed under that level. But then we ultimately get crushed back down, guys, and we see a continuation down and a continuation further under that $295 level. And why is that important? It's because it is a pretty major support level in this consolidation range. We see bouncing off once, bouncing off twice, getting out of this descending formation, wicking off once again, getting up, and we see it try to hold here again. So we do get under that. What you want to be looking out as a buyer, guys, is support at the very bottom of this consolidation range. So that being around that $288 level to around that $286, as well as the top of this candle close here, which was that volatile move kind of pushing us into that range. So we're just about right there. Price is trending at 291.71. That would be around that 289 to that psychological 290 area. Sellers have definitely stepped in here. So just like we saw here, guys, on the inverse, buyers step in very hard after breaking through that very important resistance zone. And what happens? Sellers step right back in, mirroring that exact movement. You see almost to a T. We have a very similar red bar on the inverse, pushing it back down and under that ascending support. So now we want to look for the closer support zones, or we would very likely be retracing back to around that ascending support or that floor of 247, given that we don't have a lot of data points to go off of beneath that level. As we've been seeing in this whole formation, right? Buyers push it up, sellers push it back down, almost exactly where we pushed up, and then buyers push it back up, sellers push it right back down to where it pushed up. So now you want to see on the inverse, sellers push it down under that range. You want to see buyers buy it back up before it's too late, getting back over that $295 range, possibly use as support, continue to trend up, trying to break through that 317 and furthermore that 339. Given that that 339 is a very important level that we were covering on the channel, guys, you see that drastic gap down, that is a gap to fill. Sell off this fast, guys, and this steep, there's a lot more room to the upside than the downside. And that's what we've been really pointing out here. How fast of a gap down and move down this was. We have two very large gaps to fill, about $100 gap here. And on that closer gap, right, we're talking about $40-ish gap to fill. And we are in this general consolidation range still, guys, so all is not lost. It looks like these sellers are regaining that control, but before it's too late, the buyers have to step in here, guys. You want to see volume start to flush in, buyer pressure and buyer interest flush in. So the next day or two of trading is going to be extremely important, because if we do get a continued movement down and under this consolidation range, we don't have a lot holding us back to that $255 and that $247 low. We do remain neutral / short-term bullish, as we still are in this consolidation range, although buyers do have to step in with the next day or two. All right, guys, now on the hourly, we see as we tighten up from this volatility, we definitely do see respect to these certain support and resistance zones, as we were very, very volatile coming down, and especially after that entire sell-off, just extremely volatile price action. But we do find this support right here. We bounce up, get that leg up, find that support once again. Tap and tap, and we ultimately get that leg up both times. And then, guys, we find this resistance, tap there, test it once again. Right when we test it, we get that leg back down. We find that support at that $295 level, and we reclaim that ascending support, getting really, really tight, meeting with that support and that resistance. And that's where we see that big breakout, really looking clear to that 339, but we do not get that move up. Instead, we get that retracement and that sell-off, and then we try to reclaim this ascending support to further our move up, but we cannot get that, guys. That does not happen, and we just continue our move down, getting under a pretty important ascending support, given that basically this entire consolidation range was aided by this ascending support. You see that bounce there, you see that bounce there, come back down, see that bounce there. So the fact we just completely, flushed right through that, guys, not the best sign for the buyers, but we do still have that support at 295, right? But we do flush it once again. So in the short-term picture, you want to see a reclaim. You want that to be a false breakout and break down from that $295 level, and you want to see the buyers start to step in here, pushing that stock price back up, given that if we do get below that, guys, we're looking at the very bottom of this consolidation range, which is roughly around that $288 level. If we can't get that quick correction within the next trading day or that bounce at 288, definitely looking bad. And we would be bearish on UNH if we just collapsed those two levels. So UNH is in a very interesting spot here. I mean, we had that ascending profile. We found that bottom. Price got destroyed. Bottom there quite nicely. And we started to see that ascending profile, showing that buyers are ready to fill this gap and start that movement up. But then, guys, sellers have stepped in, breaking through two major support zones. So right now we say neutral. But if we can't find those support zones, guys, watch for that full retracement back down to that floor there. Given that sell-off in the daily and hourly charts, guys, definitely not the most ideal price action. The next day or two of trading is going to be extremely important for UNH. Keep your eyes on those more closer resistance and support levels. Let me know your price predictions down in the comments below. Be patient with this one, guys. See how it develops. Watch these next two trading days very closely. And as always, trade smart, and I will see you all in the next one.